everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock and we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 7 o'clock and we are live. Welcome to Detox. I'm your host, Veronica Brockwell. Well, it's the last Tuesday of the month, and you know that we always have our favorite doctor in the house. He is a chiropractic physician, a functional medicine practitioner, a certified cellular inflammation and detoxification specialist. And he is here this evening, and he is going to talk about circulation and deep vein thrombosis. Please welcome to the Detox. Oh, for the love of God.
Hey, it's a week away from Halloween.
Dr. Michael Wild. Boo.
Hey, it's a week away from Halloween. I had to have fun.
You like that one, right? Please welcome to the Detox. For the love of God.
I'm sorry. I'm the biggest kid I know.
I know. I was not expecting that. That's what came out. It could have been a lot worse. It's a family show.
That's right.
How are you, Michael?
Actually, I've been better, right?
Yes.
And that's why we're talking about our topic we're talking about tonight.
Okay. All right. I know. I'm glad you're lighthearted tonight. That's really good. Okay. So before you get started, I know we've been doing this together for probably close to 2 years. It's been a while. But for our new viewers, can you give them just some cliff notes as to who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. And actually, that's going to segue into what we're talking about tonight.
Okay.
So that's kind of a good way to start. So as you just said, I am a chiropractic physician in practice for 31 years. I'm a functional medicine practitioner for the last 15 plus years. I'm an avid biohacker, and I am a cellular healing specialist, specifically a cellular inflammation and toxicity specialist. Mm-hmm. So what the heck does that all mean? As I like to say, I try to put it into the shortest terms possible to understand. Chiropractic care is about keeping the spine in proper balance to prevent interference to the communication between the brain and the body. So all about brain-body communication and coordination. Functional medicine is about balancing the systems of the body and cellular communication so that the body can actually operate on the information from the brain. And then biohacking is using scientific shortcuts to rapidly improve your health and performance as fast as possible and get the most out of all those things we just talked about. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason I do what I do is because of what my wife went through. I met my wife when I was 17 and she was 15, and we dated for 8 years before we got married, much like my son, who just got married a couple of weeks ago.
Congratulations.
He and his new wife dated for that long as well. So he's following right in my footsteps. So I hope it works out as well for him as it did for me. Yeah. But as much as I love my wife, I sadly lost her to cancer 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And in that journey to help her, she had a very rare aggressive cancer caused as a side effect of another medical treatment she got. And that cancer, angiosarcoma, was so rare and so aggressive that they gave her 2 months to live. They said 3 months if there's a miracle. Threw their hands up and said, there's nothing we can do. There's no treatment for this. We caused it and we can't cure it. We're sorry. That's just the way it goes. Yeah. And I, of course, wasn't ready to accept that, and neither was she. So I started diving deep into the cellular mechanisms of what goes wrong and how you can fix it for cancer specifically. But then in doing that, I uncovered kind of an understanding of what happens in all chronic disease. That same cellular dysfunction affects and develops cardiac disease, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, any of 150 autoimmune dysfunctions, and all kinds of cancer. Yeah. So it was a great eye opener for me to understand that there are commonalities there that I can address and help people prevent and even reverse all those things to a great degree, right? And so that's where I am now. That's what I do now. That's the focus of my work. And I thank God that I wake up every day able to do this and to help another person. And it really brings me joy and passion in my life. And I don't plan to ever retire from doing that.
Well, you definitely have helped me, and several people that I've referred to you because you just take a different approach than our current medical system, and to see the results is amazing.
And you're right, it is a different approach. Where the traditional system is treating your symptoms or trying to treat your disease, I actually don't do that. I operate on enhancing your health and optimizing your cellular function to optimize your immune system for resistance, resilience, and repair. And ultimately, that's what's going to save anybody from anything, right?
Yeah, it's a customized approach.
Right. It's person by person. There's a particular format I follow that I call my cellular healing cycle. And there are 6 steps to stopping sickness right where it starts. But each person's going to go in a different direction on those steps, right?
Sure.
Based on their unique physiology. So we do a lot of individualized testing that your average doctor doesn't do or will not do, doesn't even know about. Right. And when we do those advanced laboratory tests and through intense questionnaires, I'm able to determine the underlying true hidden cause of what's going on and what's damaging your cells and stop that so we can stop the process. And the beautiful thing is your body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism, and God doesn't make any junk. So if you can get the roadblocks out of the way and remove the bad stuff and get the good stuff in, guess what happens? You heal.
Right.
Right. So that's my joy and pleasure, is be able to teach people that and have them recognize that, because we've been taught to believe that health is out of our hands. And that's not at all the case. Health is completely within your hands. Only 3% of all illnesses is truly genetic, meaning, hey, you're going to get it whether you like it or not. 3%. That means 97% is not, right? And 80% of all those chronic illnesses that we talked about are completely lifestyle driven, which means they are based on the choices you make. So I teach you how to figure out what was a bad choice, how do I make a better choice specific to you.
And I think a lot of the choices, people think it's a good choice.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because there's a lot of trickery that goes on in the food industry, in the healthcare industry. Things that get passed off as health foods absolutely are not. Just a simple example, canola oil. Canola oil is not a healthy oil, and you'll find in half of the products in the health food stores, they think it's good, right? But that's today's version of margarine. And as we learned years ago, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. It doesn't work well for you, right? So canola oil, and my favorite pet peeve is when they say organic canola oil. There's really no such thing, because canola oil is genetically modified rapeseed oil from Canada, which is where they get Canadian oil, canola, right? You cannot have a genetically modified organism be organic. It's a contradiction, right? So there's a lot of lying, outright lying, that goes on in the food industry. And so you have to be aware of that. And there's a lot of lying that goes on in the healthcare industry, right? And
oh gosh, I hope we don't get shut down again.
Right? So,
we should talk about the topic at hand, because sometimes we get pulled from social media because we go down this path.
I know, no one likes the truth anymore, but that's
I
the
know,
way it works.
right? And I'm
All right, so back to what we're talking about tonight.
So you had a health scare, and I actually do not know the details. We decided to save it for the show.
Right.
So what happened?
So talking about my wife being sick with cancer, right? So 8 years ago, I took her to Mexico for immunotherapy that I could not get here in the United States because the FDA would not approve the procedures because they were considered too advanced, even though they've been done around the world for 5, 10, 15, 20 years and had tons of research behind them. We were lagging on approving them. So just because something isn't approved by FDA doesn't mean it's not good. It means they haven't gotten to it yet. Right. And when I went to Mexico, I got to tell you, this hospital I took my wife to was the most beautiful hospital I've ever been to. had the finest diagnostics I've ever seen, way better than what we have here, the finest technology and techniques, and they actually treated you well, right? I was amazed. It was dim lighting, it was soft music playing. They didn't wake you up all night long to take your vitals every hour on the hour and disturb your sleep, which is necessary for healing, right? They didn't rush you around. They took the time to sit and talk with you. It was a lovely experience, honestly. And while they were there, the techniques that were done with my wife, I objectively, through testing, measured her and saw that her immune system doubled in its activity.
Wow.
And some of those techniques is what I use now, right? But instead of having you have to go to a hospital for them, I found the home-based versions of those things to help people with that are still 95 to 99% as effective and a whole lot less expensive. For me to take my wife to that Mexico treatment for 3 weeks was $36,000 cash, right? And people complain about, spending $15 on an organic meal, So I'm happy I did it. But while we were there for those 3 weeks, I sat by her bedside and did not move. I either held her hand or I was constantly on my computer because I was doing research nonstop. I didn't sleep a whole lot during that time because I wanted to do more research. I couldn't sleep, right? I had to figure out, okay, as soon as I get out of here, what am I doing to help her? How am I going to continue? And I had created protocols that I've been working on that have eventually evolved into my cellular healing cycle, as I said. And by doing those protocols, she did live 15 times longer than the top oncologist said she would. So instead of 2 or 3 months, she lived a full 3.5 years.
That's amazing.
And I mean, not so amazing because she'd be here next to me if it was so amazing, but it was wonderful that I'd got 3.5 years that they didn't believe possible. And that was by
a quality 3.5 years.
3 years. Yes, absolutely. But at this point, I had taken her for the immunotherapy and wasn't moving an inch, sitting next to her. And they brought to the room every day bottles of purified water and carafes of coffee. And those are your two choices of what you got to drink. And also juices, but I didn't want the juices because I knew that sugar was a problem and sugar would feed cancer. And they brought the juice for me. They told me, don't let her have it. That sugar is cancer's number one fuel. So I wanted her to have all the pure water. I didn't want the sugar from the juices, so I only drank the coffee. And I had never drank coffee before because I didn't like the taste of it. But it was my only choice, and I sat there all day. So I drank 8 to 10 cups of coffee every day, right? Because I was wired and I was on purpose to research. I slept like 3 hours a night, right? Not good. I'm not telling you this is a way, do as I say, don't do as I do in this situation. I understand the folly of what I was doing, but I was in the fire. I was out of the frying pan in the fire. I had to do this and figure out what I could do. Well, because of all that, I became severely dehydrated, right? And then I flew cross country to get her back home. And when I was pushing her up a ramp in a wheelchair in the airport with all of our luggage strapped across my body, my legs seized and I dropped. And I thought I just had pulled a muscle badly because I was pushing her up a ramp with a lot of luggage attached to me, right? But that pain in my calf didn't go away for like 2 weeks. And then as I was walking down the down the hallway of my office, my toes started curling up this way, started twisting. And I realized that's a sign of a blood clot, right? That's a sign of a DVT because the muscles have been cut off with blood supply. So they're going into spasm. Originally I just thought I had a pulled muscle, but my calf wasn't really cramping. Now, another thing that I wasn't thinking DVTs right away because another common sign of DVTs is the limb will swell and turn red and hot. Then the skin will start to discolor. And I didn't have at that time any of that. Right. So I decided, okay, I know what this is, but I also at the time didn't want my wife to worry. So I didn't tell her that any of this was going on. And I told her I was going to Costco and I went to the emergency room. Right. And after 3 hours, she called me and said, how the hell long are the lines at Costco?
Yeah.
That you're still there for 3 hours. And I was at the point, oh, and by the way, as your viewers may know, I am home here with my dogs, and my dog Knight just brought me a toy to throw. So there may be a little bit of barking and carrying on in the background. Okay. So I went to the emergency room. They did an ultrasound, and they determined that I had 90% blockage of a large vein called the greater saphenous vein in my leg, and 75% blockage of another vein. And they started to freak out, and they wanted to do surgery to put a mesh device into my vein to block those clots from going to my heart. Eventually, it actually would go to my lungs first, because that's your veins empty into your lungs. I'm sorry. They are going into your lungs and heart to get re-oxygenated and pumped back out. So they go to your lungs, then they go into your heart, then they get pumped back out.
Yeah.
So what eventually happens is a blood clot goes to your lungs. You have a pulmonary embolism. And that starts to cause shortness of breath, can cause you to cough. You may not realize it's what it is. You may not be able to take a deep breath. That clot may move on to your heart. And that's where you have problems, because it can block an artery and block an artery in your heart. And that then can create a heart attack, right?
Sure.
So that's the danger of a DVT. And when you have a DVT in a large vessel, it's a greater danger because it's a bigger clot and it can move more easily. If that's above the knee, in the case of the leg, it's even more serious because it can move even faster.
Okay.
If it's below the knee, you have much less risk. If it's in a smaller vessel, you have even less risk. So while they were debating about doing the surgery on me, I did my research very quickly on my phone and decided, no, I was not going to do that. I was not going to have that surgery, because there's all kinds of risks associated with that too, right? And so I asked for whatever medical treatment they could simply do for me at the time, as far as anticoagulants, to help me get through this, because the next morning there was a 5K race that my children's friends had organized to raise money for my wife's treatment. And that was to help cover that $36,000 bill that we had. I was supposed to lead that race by pushing her in a wheelchair. And there were 500 people registered.
Okay.
And I was going to be damned if I wasn't going to be there. So they weren't very happy with me, but they gave me anticoagulant injections and made a recommendation that I go on a drug called Xarelto and let me go. So the next morning, I hopped on one foot for the whole 5K while pushing her in the wheelchair, because I knew I should not be really putting a lot of force on that leg, but I was able to do that. And long story, this is a very long story, sorry, but long story somewhat short, within 2 days of taking that drug Xarelto, we started seeing the commercials on TV, you know, the ones, if you've died while taking Xarelto, call us.
Yeah, right. I'm on it.
So it turns out that that drug had a very high incidence of causing hemorrhage, right? So the benefit of it was most people would take Coumadin. Now, Coumadin is kind of the old school drug and had a lot of its own problems, because Coumadin is warfarin, which is rat poison. It's the exact same thing. So the reason that they give it to rats to kill them is it causes their organs to hemorrhage and they die.
Okay.
So when you take it, not so good for you, right? And when you're on Coumadin, you have to get your blood tested very, very regularly to check something called your INR status to see how your blood's clotting, because you could hemorrhage out and die from taking the cure, right? So Xarelto is nice because it doesn't require any INR blood testing, and you don't have to watch your diet. On Coumadin, you can't eat any green leafy vegetables because any vitamin K stops it, so you can't even have a good healthy diet. On Xarelto, that's not the case. So Xarelto was probably the better choice, but like the commercial said, apparently a lot of people were dying just taking that. So I decided that after 1 month of that, I got another ultrasound and my blood clots were completely gone at that point. So I decided to stop taking that Xarelto altogether. And instead, I took something that is a natural anticoagulant enzyme called nattokinase. Okay, and nattokinase is an enzyme that comes from a soybean derivative called natto, which is very popular in Japan. And they ferment it with a specific bacterial strain that creates this enzyme. And this enzyme is pretty miraculous in that it dissolves blood clots and prevents you from forming new ones. It's fantastic for our heart function, for brain function, right? And really, it's something that maybe everybody should be taking to some degree, but especially in this situation. So that was a long story to tell you what happened to me 8 years ago. And I took that for a year. And I said, I've had no problems whatsoever. I feel great. I'm going to just stop taking it, right? So flash forward now.
So you're not taking it.
Right. So here we are 7 years since I stopped taking it. And about 9 months ago, I injured my shoulder. And that changed my routine. So I stopped exercising. I stopped going to the gym because anything I did hurt it. Even if I was doing cardio, it hurt. So I said, I just have to just lay low and take a break. I mean, I'm really active all day long. I'm running from room to room in my office, seeing patients. So it's not like I'm sitting around. But when I wasn't exercising, when did I used to exercise? First thing in the morning. I would go to the gym, right? And I would drink a lot of water. And I would drink water with electrolytes, right? And electrolytes, like this stuff here, there we go, all right? Electrolytes are very, very important because electrolytes is what gets the water across your cell membranes and into your cells. So if you're drinking a lot of water that doesn't have any minerals in it, has no electrolytes in it, most of that water is staying extracellular, staying outside the cell membranes, kind of going in and out of the tissues through different layers we have, staying in your bloodstream, and then you pee it out.
Yeah.
Right? So you need the minerals, the electrolytes to carry it across the cell membrane. So I wasn't getting the electrolytes like I used to. I wasn't getting the water like I used to because I was usually drinking about 42 to 50 ounces of water before, during, and after my workout. I wasn't doing any of that. What was I doing instead? Sitting on the computer, doing research, working on my new online Restore Your Health Online functional medicine program for at least 2 hours every morning, not moving and not hydrating, right? Not a good combination. And I wasn't thinking about it because I'm thinking, oh, I'm just doing this for a day. Well, I did that pretty much almost every day, looking back now, for about 8 or 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I dehydrated again. Now, not to the point of what I would call clinical dehydration. I didn't feel bad, right? But there's a test you can do where you pull up the skin on the back of your hand and you let it go, and it should snap right back and down. If it stays up or goes slowly down, you are somewhat dehydrated. Right? Good. You're well hydrated. See how well you're snapping right back?
Because I've been going to the drip bar.
There you go.
Right? I have been.
That, right?
I know. I've been getting those IV infusions the last couple
IV
weeks.
Infusions for hydration, and I actually might go do that just to speed the process up for myself. But
right, because that's pretty cool. Because I'm pretty old.
Right? You got good snapback, right? So you want to be really elastic. It should snap right back. It shouldn't stay there. And I do some patients, and I do this, and it just stays there. And I go, that's a problem. Yeah. Right? Okay, so that's one little way you can tell if you're dehydrated. So kind of lost my train of thought there when we started talking about IV for a second.
So you were sitting for 9 months.
I was sitting, right?
You were drinking coffee?
Right, drinking coffee while I was sitting, right?
Yeah.
And then I went on
vacation. What happened?
I went on vacation down to the Outer Banks, had a lovely time, right? And I'm on vacation. So what do you do on vacation? Are you generally in your exercise routine? No. Are you usually eating and drinking the way you normally would? No, right? And I like to, in the Outer Banks, if the waves were good, I'd be out there swimming, boogie boarding, and surfing every day. But the waves weren't good. So what did I do? I sat, right? And I had some friends join me down there. So we'd sit on the beach and talk, or we go back and sit in the house and talk. And while we're sitting in the house and talking, it's the afternoon, we figure, hey, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? I'm having a drink. So no water, no movement, alcohol, all dehydrating, right? And it's at the end of 9 months of me dehydrating. So halfway through that week, I woke up in the morning and I noticed that my right leg was hanging a little bit off the edge of the bed. So the edge of the bed was cutting like into my calf. And I thought, wow, that's really sore, right? I'm like, I must have been there for a long time in that one position. Then I stood up to walk and I felt like, holy cow, I pulled my calf muscle. How did I do that? I was sleeping. Was I dreaming that I was a contortionist in the circus? I mean, I don't understand. Right. And it really hurt. And then I stretched it out.
And it didn't feel like, you know how sometimes you get when you're dehydrated, you get a muscle cramp?
Yeah, no, it wasn't cramping.
It's not like that.
Right. It felt like I pulled the muscle, like it was sore.
Yeah.
Right. But it wasn't cramping. And then throughout that day, I noticed the pain would shoot up the whole back of my leg, sometimes all the way up to my butt. Then it would be back to my calf. And that went on for a full week. Yeah. Right. And after a week, I said, I did nothing to pull my muscle. And I kind of remember this dull, toothache feeling in my leg. Right.
Oh, yeah. You've had it before. So you recognized that.
And I said, last time I had this, it took 2 weeks for my toes to start curling. Here, I'm only 1 week into it. I better go get checked out.
Right.
So I went and got an ultrasound again, and I have 100% blockage.
100%.
And a partial occlusion, which is 50 to 75% of another vein. Right. Now, thankfully, your leg has many veins. And there are about 6 different kind of main veins. So 2 of those are blocked, and they are 2 of the lesser important veins, so to speak. Like last time I had the greater saphenous, which is the biggest one. That was a much bigger concern. This time it's the posterior tibial and peroneal. So those are smaller blood vessels. They're still large, but they're smaller, which means smaller clot, less chance of it breaking loose. And they're really low at the very bottom of my calf, like just above my ankle. Yeah. So that's probably like the least dangerous place you could have a blood clot. Right. So I'm not concerned about a pulmonary embolism. I'm not, concerned about a heart attack. I'm more concerned about what they call it's like a type of phlebitis, and it's a post DVT syndrome where the skin becomes thickened and discolored because of lack of blood flow and can stay that way, right? And you can have more pain and like varicose veins and things like that because the pressure is building up and can start damaging the valves. And after I had the first DVTs, they told me I'd always be prone to more because the blood vessels do become stretched and scarred from the first time that happens. And so I'd be much more likely to have them again. So I figured going 8 years without them is probably not so bad. But I really have to take my own advice and pay attention, right? How easy is it to get lazy? To say, hey, I'm doing pretty well. I feel good. My blood work looks good. I'm exercising when I can on a regular basis. I feel I'm on a good weight. My skin looks good, right? Yeah. So for the most part, I felt like I'm okay. But I have an inherent weakness that I have to pay attention to. Yeah. So from this point forward, I will be taking nattokinase every day. And I'll continue to hydrate every day, right? No matter what. I'll stay on top of that.
And there are lots of causes of this, right? I mean, I think we need to talk about it. I mean, this is your story. But I think people will be surprised at how we're all susceptible to these things.
Absolutely. And that's why I thought this would be an important topic for tonight, because not only is it top of my mind awareness, but circulation affects the top of your mind, right? And every other part of your body. So if you have a blockage in your circulation, whether in an artery or a vein, blood is not pumping all the way through the way it's supposed to. And that means some cell somewhere is not getting what it needs, right? So it means that your tissues can start to become damaged. So circulation is of prime importance. It's the only way that oxygen and nutrients get to the cells. And when you have poor circulation, not only can it cause cold arms, hands, feet, that type of thing, but it can cause premature death from what you would have if you had good circulation.
Sure.
Right? Actually, one of the tests, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode, but one of the things I do in my office is I check how far you can extend your calf, right, as a measurement of longevity. Because if you can extend your foot up and stretch your calf a lot, that means you can push it back down a lot. And that pushing down contracts your calf and pumps the blood back up through your body.
Where do you put your foot?
So you want to see how high up you can, right? And I actually have a
Like if you
a
can.
little gauge. I have a little gauge that you step on.
Did you do me when I did that? Did I?
I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Right?
I'm gonna.
But you step on it. And if you can go this far, but if someone can only go this far and they can't stretch their foot at all, if you can go this far, you're going to live on average about 10 years longer than someone who can't do this at all.
So I can put my foot all the way like this.
Right. So if you can go all the way up, that's great.
But
right?
coming down,
so when you go up,
sort of like this.
Well, if you were standing like on a step.
Yeah.
Right. And if you could stretch your foot all the way down on that step, if you have your toes on the step, and then you can pump all the way back up like you're doing push-ups with your feet, right? Calf ups.
Okay, because I'm a little tight in my calf.
Well, that's what we're talking about. So calf tightness leads to premature death.
I'm super tight in my calves.
So you want to stretch. You want to get on that step and you want to drop your foot down with the ball of your foot on the step. Drop it down.
Okay.
And stretch and just hold there. You don't have to pump, right? Just hold it there. And as you hold there, you're going to notice it goes a little further and a little further and a little further. Then contract up as high as you can go and hold it for 5 seconds.
Okay.
And take a deep breath in, blow it out. And when you blow it out, let the foot drop.
So we can fix this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless you have, say, had surgery or scar tissue or something in there that's not going to allow it to stretch. You want to try to do the best you can because your heart pumps the blood out, but your calves pump the blood back.
Okay.
All right. So in many cultures, they call the calf the second heart.
Oh, all right. Oh,
so you want to keep this going around and around. All right.
Oh, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
That's like really a good idea. Okay. So,
all right.
Deep vein thrombosis. So,
all right. So let's talk about dehydration is obvious. And the reason I was talking about all that is because it's the most obvious thing. But there are 10 not so obvious causes of DVT. And number one is being an athlete. And you're like, what are you talking about? Right. If you're an athlete and you're pumping your muscles, you should have great circulation. Right. The problem with that is endurance athletes like marathon runners are much more prone to get clots more often because the muscles get too tight through that running and actually squeeze so tight they cut off the circulation. And as they cut that circulation with those tight leg muscles, they actually start to develop DVTs. But also what can happen is if you are an athlete, you might blow it off thinking, oh, that's just a pulled muscle. Right.
Sure.
And if you're actually a high level athlete, like a marathon runner, you might travel long distances to get in a marathon. I might fly cross country to get in that marathon. Well, flying also increases your risk of DVTs because the change in the pressurization causes those blood vessels to not pump as well. Right. And that's why any flight over 4 hours, you need to be up and moving. You got to get up and walk around. Or wear compression hose stockings on that flight, anything over 4 hours. That's why that was the icing on the cake when I flew my wife back cross country. It was 6 hours, and that was it. That's what kicked it off for me, right? So right now I'm wearing a compression stocking on that leg because it's pushing the fluid back up out of my calf, and it feels so much better. I wasn't wearing it for the first, so now I'm on day like 15, 16, I guess, maybe something like that since this started. And for the whole last week, I wasn't wearing a compression stocking because it wasn't that bad. But then during the week, it started to really get to me. And when I put it on, I'm like, well, that was stupid. I shouldn't have from the beginning because it feels so much better with that on it. But, I didn't want to look like.
But it should dissolve, right? Because you're on.
Yeah. So what happens is your body will naturally dissolve a blood clot that's not getting bigger. So if you keep doing the same things, it's just going to get bigger like a snowball. But if you stop doing things that are causing it, your body will dissolve it in 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
All right. Now, taking nattokinase will dissolve it a lot faster. I just read yesterday a research study where they tested about 30 young men with blood clots, given nattokinase at the dosage I'm taking, which is 100 milligrams per day. I'm actually taking a little bit more right now. And they fully dissolved every one of their blood clots in 10 days.
Okay.
Right. So this stuff.
Well, and you'll know, right? Because you won't have the pain anymore.
Yes and no.
Okay.
You'll have less pain, but I'm already having those skin changes, right? So I see a discoloration and swelling. So there may be a little bit of damage to my tissue that like it feels like I have sunburn,
Okay.
right? So what's already stopped is it felt like I had a toothache in my calf all day.
Mm-hmm.
That's gone,
Great.
right? Now I just have kind of the sunburny feeling.
Okay.
So all the symptoms may not go away, but yes, you should notice some kind of difference. And I'm going to wait a month and I'm going to redo the ultrasound and see what's going on.
Yeah, we're all going to be, waiting to hear, your progress because, that's very scary. And
Well, I appreciate the support.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All
All
right,
right. So
next.
number 2 surprising thing is surgery,
Mm,
right? Especially surgery of the abdomen, pelvis, hips, or legs, puts
mhm.
you at a much greater risk of DVT. Um, a lot of veins can get damaged and injured during the surgery, and there's a lot of pressure that goes on. They have to clamp blood vessels, and that backs up pressure, and that causes them to swell, and they become damaged,
Mhm.
right? So if you've had any kind of lower body surgery, you're at much greater risk.
And then
Okay?
also you're in bed, right? You're not really moving
Correct,
around.
right?
So
So
now you
you
have
then have
that.
the bed rest after the surgery, and so you're laying around for a long time, and that's just adding to the problem,
Mhm.
right? The
All right.
third thing that's a surprise thing.
And that's awesome. Everybody's. Oh my
I like
gosh.
that.
I am
It's like
so
the
sorry.
ringtone.
I've got like multiple things going on here.
That's
Okay.
okay.
I
Hey,
have multiple devices and one's on the other side of the room.
I get it. And you know what?
And
Hey,
I'm hooked. I'm old school hooked up.
we're all friends here, and we're not
Yeah.
pros. We're not professional podcasters, right?
Yeah.
We're
And it says Orleans. I'm like, no, this is telemarketer.
Yep. I
Yeah.
get more
Yeah.
calls and texts from telemarketers than I do regular people nowadays.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here like, oh yeah, whatever. Okay.
Let's talk about the third surprising cause of DVTs, right? And that
Oh,
is
whoops. I forgot to put it
inflammatory
up.
bowel diseases like
Mm,
IBD or IBS, right?
mm,
So things like Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or other bowel disorders
mm.
can double or even triple your risk for DVTs. And think about that. When people have all these bowel disorders, where are they spending most of their time? On the toilet,
Sitting.
right? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Or
fluid
we
leaving
hope
the body,
so. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So dehydration again,
Yeah.
right? And then also, if you have inflammatory bowel disease, sometimes people end up with surgery on top of dehydration, right?
Yeah.
So the next thing that's a surprising source is low vitamin D,
I was surprised at this.
right?
Mm.
So the minimum that a person should have every day is about 800 IUs of vitamin D every day. Now you can get that from food sources like salmon, cheese, and egg yolks,
Yeah.
or you can, have your body make vitamin D from sun exposure. You need at least 30 minutes of the majority of your body exposed to the sun at least twice a week in a part of the country where above the equator, it takes longer. Below the equator, it's shorter because the sun's rays are stronger, right? So in a part of the country where the sun's at a good apex, so in the summer, you're going to make it a lot faster. 30 minutes twice a week should do it. In the winter, you might need 30 minutes 4 times a week, right?
Sure.
And I said the majority of your body, because if it's just half your arms in a short sleeve shirt, that's not going to do it. You need to be like in your backyard with your shirt off, bikini top, or whatever, getting your body exposed. So in the winter months, we tend not to do that. So I recommend supplementing, right?
Yeah.
Now, I recommend supplementing a bit higher with vitamin D. 800 IUs is the bare minimum. 2,000 IUs a day is kind of the generally recommended maintenance dose. But if you are low on the vitamin D scale, you really need to get your vitamin D levels checked because vitamin D is so important. It's actually not a vitamin, it's a steroid hormone that controls your cellular and genetic mechanisms.
We had a whole show on this.
Yes, we did. Right. So
It
go
was
back.
very
to that
interesting.
one and
Yeah.
check
On
that
vitamin
one out.
D.
Right. Because we could talk for a whole hour about vitamin D.
Yeah.
But you want the general lab levels are between 30 and 100.
Yeah.
30 is really low. I like to see people between 75 and 100. right? And then there's people who are concerned about going over 100 because vitamin D, being fat soluble, does not wash out of your body, and you can overdo it and create vitamin D toxicity, but you would have to get over like 300 would have to be your blood level, right? So it's almost impossible to do that. All right. You'd have to be taking an awful lot. So I personally take about 20,000 IUs of vitamin D every day.
Okay. All right. Next one.
Okay. The next thing is any medicine that contains sex hormones, and birth control is going to be the most common one, right? Mm-hmm. So any hormone replacement therapy, HRT, right? For menopause, like with estrogen. Well, estrogen creates blood clots much more easily, right? So the chance is small, about 1 in 1,000 women taking birth control pills will get a DVT from that, but still 1 in 1,000. I mean,
well, and I think, that's a warning that we're told this,
right.
And I think we don't really, like, we know it, but we ignore that.
We kind of blow it off, right?
Yeah,
like,
we do.
Well, I still want the birth control, so I'll take the risk. And now a lot of women are wearing a patch rather than taking a pill because it's easier, right? Well, the patch has 60% more estrogen in it than the pill does.
Really?
Yeah. So your risks are actually significantly greater for blood clots. Now, for men, if men are taking testosterone, exogenous or testosterone from outside your body can cause thicker blood and lead to DVTs as well.
Okay.
Right? So you have to watch out and monitor for these things. The next thing is cancer, right? Because tumors can cause tissue damage and release chemicals that cause blood clotting. So especially cancers of the brain, colon, lung, kidney, ovary, pancreas, and stomach have the highest rate of DVTs. All right. So also some types of chemotherapy, if you choose to do chemotherapy for cancer, can also cause blood clots.
Radiation?
Radiation can cause scarring of vessels that can cause blood clots. Right. So these are all things to keep in mind and keep in at the top of mind awareness that if you're going through chemo radiation, you should wear compression stockings and be as active as possible. Not marathon running active, but regular activity, right? Keep that blood pumping. Okay. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is being overweight. So obesity, especially carrying extra weight around your midsection, puts a lot more pressure on the veins of your pelvis and your legs, right? And that can actually double your odds of getting a DVT. That's a lot, right?
Sure.
So how do we know if we're obese? Well, we generally use the BMI, which I think is a really kind of lousy way of doing it, right? But the BMI index just compares your height and your weight. And if your BMI score is 25 or greater, you're considered overweight. Now, if you're 25 or greater and taking birth control, your chances of developing a DVT can be up to 10 times, tenfold, right? That's tremendous. Not double the risk, 10 times the risk. That's a really bad combination. All right. So you also want to exercise regularly to defend yourself against that risk. And you want to lose weight, right?
All right.
And I'll give myself a little shameless plug. If you need help with that, I absolutely can help with that because losing weight can be very tough for some people. Weight and fat deposits are controlled by 15 different hormones, 5 brain hormones called neurotransmitters, and 10 in your body. Estrogen is one of them, right? And so I can help people rebalance their hormones if they're having difficulty losing weight. All right. Number 8 on the hit parade, pregnancy, right? Because we talk about having extra weight in your belly, think about being pregnant.
Wow.
Right? There's a tremendous amount of extra pressure put on the veins in your legs, right? And you're still at risk for up to 6 weeks after you give birth. Now, in pregnancy, 2 women out of every 100 pregnancies will develop DVTs. And again, I think those odds are fairly high.
I do too.
Now listen to this. If you're obese, if you're over age 35, if you're pregnant with twins, if you have a family history of blood clots, or you've been on bed rest, it exponentially increases those odds, right? So again, just follow what we're saying, stay active, all right? Wear compression sleeves while you're pregnant if you fit one of those categories.
This was another one that I was so surprised.
Right? It's a little shocking. Premature birth. Now, not meaning that the mother's at greater risk, but the baby is, right? So if you're born before 37 weeks, you have a much higher risk throughout your entire life of developing DVTs. Now, scientists aren't exactly sure why, but there's a lot of possibilities. And especially if you think about it, we know that it's in those very last weeks the body's doing a lot of its full development, the lungs fully developing, right? Especially, and the vasculature throughout those lungs. So if a baby's born premature, they're much more likely to have breathing problems, asthma, have stunted growth, right? And to have DVTs.
Wow.
Especially ones that can lead to pulmonary embolism.
And with somebody in this category, what could they do? Just manage their lifestyle, really?
Right. And they might want to consider using nattokinase like I am. To be preventive.
Sure. Because their risk is so high. Yeah.
Right.
This
and
one
the very last one on our hit parade is smoking. Right. Yeah. Should be obvious, right? Because smoking affects how your blood clots and how your blood flows throughout your entire body. And smoking, even occasionally, damages your heart and your blood vessels in everyone who smokes. All right. Also, especially don't want to smoke if you're on birth control. That combination increases your risk of developing DVTs ninefold.
Wow.
All right. So you can stroke out, you can have a heart attack. All right. By smoking and being on the birth control. All right. Yeah. So not a good combination.
So here's our list. So let's talk about what can we do.
Okay. So number one, exercise regularly, right? Keep those calves pumping. Now, if you have a desk job or if you're sitting at your computer for hours in the morning before you go to work, like I do, right? Keep doing those calf push-ups. Just push up onto the balls of your feet and drop your feet back down. And your calves are your walking muscles. So it's really hard to fatigue them. You could do that for hours and your legs would not get tired or should not get tired. Okay. Now, if your legs start to cramp while you're doing that, you may already have a blood clot. So be aware of that. All right. So typically when you have a blood clot, the more you use the muscle, the tighter it will become. Okay. So one way that we get to determine when someone tells me, hey, my muscles and my legs are cramping a lot, I say, okay, that could be one of three things. That could be vascular, like a clot. That could be nutritional, like an electrolyte imbalance. Or that could be neurologic, like a nerve to your leg is being pinched in your back. Okay. Right? So how do we tell the difference? Well, if it's nutritional, it's going to affect more than just one muscle. So you're going to say, yeah, my legs were cramping. Then the next day my arm was cramping. The next day my eye kept jumping and my muscles are just jumping all over the place, or I'm getting a lot of Charlie horses and they're going from place to place. That's usually nutritional. Right? It affects the whole body. So then I get people on a good mineral supplement and good electrolyte balance, right? And make sure that you drink water that has electrolytes in it. So like spring water, or like I use a reverse osmosis machine to take all the impurities out of my water, but then I add mineral drops back to it before I drink it, because it actually takes all the minerals out too, right?
Not to digress, but on the same topic, like 10 years ago, my eye was like twitching. Yeah. For like weeks.
Especially if it's your left eye. If your left eye lid just keeps twitching and twitching and twitching.
It was like you could see it.
Yeah. So that's a sign of adrenal gland stress.
Which is exactly my issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It finally, but it was, I don't remember which. I think I have a video in my camera roll, because it was bizarre. And
it's a weird feeling too, right? When it sits there and just, right?
Yeah. All right.
So
that's another show.
Your adrenal glands help to balance your minerals in your body. Okay. Right. So if your adrenal glands are stressed and they can't balance the minerals properly, you end up with muscle fasciculations, jumping, or spasm, cramping, and Charlie horses. Right.
Okay. And I think during that time I was getting cramping, like in the middle of the night, like my legs would cramp up, and I thought maybe I was dehydrated. I don't know what it was.
So here's the other thing. So if it's neurologic, from a nerve, it will happen not necessarily associated with exercise. It'll be kind of willy-nilly come and go, or it'll only be during certain things, like every time I sit or every time I lay down at night.
Oh, yeah.
My right calf cramps, right? Because you're putting pressure on different parts of your spine, especially in your lower back, and the nerves from your lower back go down. Part of those nerves control those muscles in your legs and the blood flow to those muscles in your legs, right? So every blood vessel has to open and contract. That signal comes from your nervous system, right? Which the nervous system then releases chemicals that tell that blood vessel to open or close. So if the nerves in your lower back are being irritated from a misalignment, that's going to cause a problem with the nerves running to your legs, and that can lead to muscle cramping right there. And if it's a blood clot, it typically will happen when you use the muscle more, right? So the more the muscle's asking for blood and the less it gets, the more it's going to cramp.
Okay.
So typically in that situation, people say, yeah, it happens exactly 5 minutes after I start walking. Or every time I walk 150 steps, boom. So it's going to be very systematic, associated with exercise or movement in some way. That's going to usually be vascular.
Okay.
All right. So one thing we want to do is make sure that we exercise regularly. Second thing we want to do is make sure we hydrate every single day, and more if you're exercising hard and sweating a lot out, right? Or if you're celebrating a great workout by having a beer or some form of alcohol later in the day. Hopefully
not me.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes me think of it. It makes me laugh. I'm sure you've probably seen it. It's probably, it's all over social media for over a year now, but it's a reel or something where there's a woman at her front door early in the morning in a robe with a big glass of wine, and she's drinking. She's like, "Hey, why are you running? Is someone chasing you?" Right? Looking at people jogging, because she's like, it's too early for exercise, and she's chugging her wine.
Yeah. All right.
The sun's coming up, right?
Yeah.
So we all have different habits, some good, some bad. We want to make sure that if you are consuming alcohol, that you are hydrating to match that. It's a good idea. 1 alcoholic drink, 1 glass of water with electrolytes, spring water, mineral water, right?
And the same with coffee, because coffee is a
And I actually
diuretic,
make
right?
my coffee with mineral water, right? So that I'm trying to balance a little bit of that dehydrating aspect, but coffee is very dehydrating and ultimately and acidic, right? Ultimately, you need about 7 glasses of water to neutralize every single cup of coffee.
Oh, wow.
All right. And when we say a cup, we're talking about 5 to 6 ounces. So you need about 40 ounces of water, to balance that cup of coffee.
Wow.
And I was not doing that. I was drinking the coffee and not doing the water.
I'll be at the drip bar again.
Right.
But then you're sitting.
True.
Well, I guess you don't have to. I guess you don't have to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And you're only sitting for about an hour, right? When you're doing an infusion.
I think so. I don't know. That's my thing right now. It actually it's made me feel great.
Yeah. It gives your body a boost for sure. And think about it.
Yeah.
If you are ill or you're in an accident and someone calls an ambulance, what is the first 2 things they do for every single person they put in an ambulance?
Yeah, they probably they put an IV, right?
They put an IV in to hydrate saline instantly, and they put you on oxygen, right?
Yeah.
Because you need the oxygen to get to your cells, and you need the fluid to transport it.
Sure.
Right? Regardless of what's happening, whether you're going to try to heal from a cut or you're trying to get over food poisoning, you're going to need those 2 things.
Regarding the exercise, Michael, because you were saying that runners tend to develop blood clots.
If you're doing really long distance running, intense running, like marathon running.
So what type of exercises would you recommend when you say exercise?
So I don't recommend marathon running. I actually think it's quite bad for your body on many different fronts. I recommend high intensity interval training and sprinting, right? And you can sprint whether you're sprinting with your feet for running, or you're sprinting on a bike, or you're sprinting doing jumping jacks, so to speak, right? Jumping jacks. It just means I want to see a burst of high intensity activity as long and as hard and as far as you can do it. When you feel like you're going to fall on your face, stop and either walk very slowly or actually sit down. Wait until you're fully recovered and you're breathing normally again, and then do it again, right? And you actually get the best physiological effect out of that. You get the best hormone balance out of that. You get reduction of inflammation out of that, and you get the best blood pumping throughout your body when you do that. There are also certain herbs you can use that help blood flow, especially such as up into the brain. Things like ginkgo biloba and bacopa monnieri. So these are herbs that help bring the blood flow back up into the brain much better and throughout your whole body, right? Fish oil as a supplement, right, is
we need that anyway.
Right? It's a natural blood thinner, and those omega-3s heal and repair your cell membranes, as you know, as I've spoken about before, and it keeps your blood thin. Garlic helps keep your blood flowing. Vitamin E in its whole form, right? Not synthetic, but whole food vitamin E keeps your blood flowing. All right. So all these supplements can be helpful for these purposes.
What else?
Let's see. Proper sleep is very important, right? So again, not a
what's proper
sleep? Getting at least 5 to 6 hours of good quality sleep. 7 is apparently for most people the ideal. Different studies are showing different things. Some say you don't even have to get them consecutively, as long as you get them in a 24-hour period.
Okay.
So you can have 4 hours and then be up and then go back for 4 hours, and you get just about the same benefit as if you went for 7 or 8 hours straight through. Okay. It's a minimal difference, although you may feel more tired.
All right.
But from a physiological perspective, it seems to be about the same. So even if you're up and you can't seem to get back to sleep, try. Even if you're up for an hour, try to go back to sleep. And that happens to me from time to time. And after an hour, if I haven't gone back to sleep, then I'm going to get productive. I'm just going to start doing something, right? But I listen to brain frequency music, trying to relax myself if I wake up in the middle of the night like that, or read a book. Try not to turn TV on, because the blue light from the computer screen activates your cortisol, which increases your stress response and lowers your melatonin, which keeps you awake, right? So try not to eat a midnight snack if you can help it. If you do, make sure it's not carbohydrate based, because if it is, that converts to sugar, which again raises that cortisol, right? So instead, you want a fatty snack, like maybe a piece of cheese, or a protein based snack, like maybe some nuts, right? Or a little nut butter, right? That'd be a much better choice if you want that late night or midnight snack.
And that's not peanut butter, nut butter, because peanuts are not nuts.
Correct, right?
They're beans.
Right, they're a form of legume, and the problem with peanuts is also they are very high in mold, right?
Yeah, that
which
too.
Creates a stimulatory effect to your immune system.
They're in the ground; they don't come off a tree. But with peanut butter, we just think they're nuts.
Right, because someone called them nut. Right, the word's right in there, but they're not.
Yeah, peanut.
Right, not right.
Peanut. Yes. All right. That's a whole other show. All right. So anything else?
I think that's a pretty good start.
I have a HIIT class in the morning. I take a HIIT class every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m.
Oh, you know what? I just thought one more thing. I can't believe I didn't say this.
What?
Okay. One of the greatest things you can do to increase your circulation, if you want to use a biohacking tool, is called PEMF, P-E-M-F.
Oh.
Pulsed electromagnetic fields.
Okay.
Right? So there are tools, devices you have to purchase to do that dramatically improve your microcirculation, as the PEMF has many benefits to it, from increasing stem cell production to stopping cancer cells. Lots of things, lots of research over the last 50 years showing the benefits of PEMF. But one thing that everyone agrees on, dramatically improves your microcirculation, really gets blood pumping through your capillaries and exchanging with your cells, right? If someone wants advice about a good tool to buy or anything, they can reach out to me. You can give them my contact information. I'd be able to helpfully talk them through that, because there are a lot of different devices and they can run anywhere from $500 to $15,000.
Do you offer that in your biohack gym?
I do. I have 2 PEMF devices.
In Richmond, Virginia.
Yep, in Richmond, Virginia. I have them set up in 0 gravity chairs. So you're taking all the pressure off your spine while you're using the PEMF. And I put leg sleeves on you that compress and move the circulation from your legs back up into your body. And I also put a headset on you playing very specific software that gets your brain waves to get into sync with relaxing your body and optimizing your healing. And then one more tool in that same room in my office is sauna, right? But specifically infrared sauna. Infrared sauna dramatically improves your circulation. As a matter of fact, in one 20-minute session of infrared sauna at a temperature of about 140 to 160 degrees gives you the same benefit as a cardio workout.
Wow.
It will get your heart pumping so high, usually up to around 140 to 150 beats, right? Just laying in the sauna dramatically improves your circulation and detoxifies you at the same time, which is why tons of research is now pointing to the fact that if you do that sauna for 20 minutes, 4 times a week, you decrease your risk of dying from anything, especially heart disease, but from anything by 68%.
It's unbelievable.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't believe I almost didn't say that, because I was trying to think of things you can just do on your own. But those 2 tools.
Well, I mean, I guess you could do the infrared. You could get the infrared sauna if you wanted.
Right?
If you can't.
And I can help people with that as well. I might even be able to get them a discount, because I know that as a health professional, I sometimes am able to get discount codes. So if someone wants to reach out to find out about that, I could tell them where to get an infrared sauna mat. And my favorite ones are the ones that wrap up around you. There are different degrees of those. They can be as little as under $200 or go upwards to close to $1,000. But there's different things they're doing that are more effective. They also have better electromagnetic shielding, so that you're not getting the negative electromagnetic rays, right? When we talk about EMFs being bad for you, you want a properly shielded instrument, right? So the more expensive ones have more benefits, do more things, and have better shielding, right? But you can still get pretty decent ones nowadays. Some companies just came out with ones I just saw last week that look pretty decent for a lot less.
And anyone can reach out to Michael. He got the website on drwildhelp.com. And what can we find there?
So if you go to my website, you'll see it tells a little story about me and my history and why I do what I do, as I kind of shared at the beginning of this story. It just goes into our podcast. It goes a little bit more into the story. Also, it gives you a breakdown of understanding the 3 different services that I offer and what I can do in office as well as virtually. And I'm always available for a free consultation. I'm always here. I always tell everybody, don't be afraid to talk to me. Feel free to pick my brain. I'll give anybody 15 minutes to pick my brain on any topic they want to relative to their health concerns, right?
And I've been seeing you for years, and we actually just met in person recently. So the tests have all been shipped directly to me, and we've been able to analyze my body chemistry and create a plan that's unique to me. So this is 100%. Like, it doesn't matter if you're not in Richmond, Virginia. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. He can help you.
Absolutely right. And
it's so true. Your 15 minutes, like, that's exactly, I remember I had my 15 minutes with you, and
it can be very eye-opening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I'll ask you what's going on with you, and I'll ask you what you've done so far, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And I can pretty quickly get a very good assessment of where the ball was dropped.
Oh,
and I can
make recommendations
about how to improve it.
Yeah. Everything that was going on with me, like, right away.
And actually, that's why I created the online system that I've created called Restore Your Health Online. So that is restoreyourhealth.online. And if you go to that page, you'll see that I offer different levels of functional medicine service through that. And on that page, you can click a button that says book a consult, which will take you to my website as well. And you click another button that says book a free consult, and then you just go on from there. But you also can see 3 different levels of service that I offer there that people can start working with me for as little as $47.
Yeah.
right? And get a whole month of help from me for $47.
Yeah. No, it's
And
great value.
right, and we can go to different levels of help depending on what your problems are and what your needs are, right? So I offer 3 levels of help. That lowest level of help is called dietary direction because it all starts with what goes in your mouth, like it or not.
So true.
You can't
right?
get around it, right? And so
Right.
I give you very specific direction through an app that you get to keep forever that tells you exactly what to buy in the grocery store, recipes, menu ideas, everything you would need to know to take all the guesswork out of how to eat in a healthy way and how to avoid the greatest cause of cellular inflammation. And I have a middle level service where you get all that plus personalized protocols based on 2 lab tests that we'll do for you every 3 months, included tracking your baseline and your improvement and your progress and all the coaching and consulting that goes along with that. Then I have the highest level service called Cellular Health Consulting. And that is following the 6 steps of my cellular healing cycle. That's for people who already have been diagnosed with a chronic disease or have a propensity for it and want to prevent it. And that is a minimum 12-month process. It's not for everyone. It's only people who are serious about getting healthy, right?
Yeah.
And in there, I give you a boatload of service. There are 18 advanced tests, 18 one-on-one extended consultations, 6 video courses of me teaching you, 14 video courses for stress and trauma therapy and release. Every supplement that you might possibly need is included. 3 different biohacking tools, such as the infrared sauna. I buy one for you and send it to you. A transcutaneous vagus nerve stimulator to activate your healing response in your nervous system. I send that to you. A full body red light system for activating your mitochondria for energy production. I buy that and send that to you. So all of this is included in that level of care, right? So I'm not fooling around when it comes to your health.
No. And Michael, please keep us posted on your DBT. We want to know how that's working out for you. I'm glad you're okay. I feel confident that you're gonna. This is already in the process of healing, and you're gonna be just awesome because
I got this.
You know what to do.
I know not to screw up and do it again.
Yeah,
so
you know what to do.
This crisis, I'm going to take my own advice and do
Mhm.
better and pay attention a little bit every day because it's a slippery slope. It's easy to get in bad habits, even for me, everybody, right? We're human.
Yeah, and thank you
So
for sharing your story because, that was, it was very brave to do. And you're using, your own situation, others, and it's just real. It makes us all realize that even Michael has a drink occasionally. He slips up occasionally. He doesn't drink, because we're just living our lives and we're trying to do the best we can.
absolutely. And I have a little tagline that I like to say, or my motto is save your cells and you save yourself, right?
Yeah.
And what I say is if you save your cells 90% of the time and do what's right for your cells, then 10% of the time you can just do what's right for your soul. Right?
Exactly. And did you have a great time on vacation?
Absolutely, right? So you
You
can have
certainly did.
you can have the occasional dessert, right? I'm not talking about being an ogre. I'm talking about being realistic. But the
Yeah,
problem is when you make that your everyday thing, we got a serious problem.
of course.
It really has to be few and far between, right? Anywhere
Yeah.
from a once a week to once a month thing, not an everyday thing.
Right.
Or a vacation thing. It was too much on vacation. All right. But,
Well, I know, but I'm glad you had a good time. So we're a little over. So we should probably say goodnight. But thank you. And happy Halloween. I know it's one of your favorite holidays.
absolutely. And I'll just, go back to character here.
Yeah, go back to character. Give
Say
Ralphie. Give Ralphie. Where's Ralphie? I never even saw Ralphie today. There he is. Ralphie. Oh my gosh. You can't even see his face. That is the cutest dog. I can't.
I don't think Ralphie likes my mask.
I don't think so either. I can't see his face, but he's
in there. He's getting a haircut next week.
Oh my gosh. That is a cute dog. That's for sure. What kind of dog is he?
He's a Havapoo, half Havanese, half poodle.
Oh my gosh. So adorable.
So I call him an Ewok because he looks just like an Ewok, especially we put him in a little hoodie and he looks just like an Ewok.
Yeah, no, he's cute. All right. I will see you. I will see you in a month.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Bye,
Have a great
honey.
night.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back again soon. I'm actually not sure when, but I will keep you posted. But we will be back on a Tuesday night soon. It's 7:00 live with another fantastic guest. If you want to see Michael Wild again on the podcast, we will have him on the last Tuesday of each month. If you'd like a free consultation with Michael, please go to his website, drwildcanhelp.com, and click on free consult and set up an appointment. He will call you back. I promise you, you will be glad that you did. All right, everybody, I'm going to sign off. Have a good evening. Bye.